Hey guys, how's it going? So UFC 318 just wrapped up and I'm going to run through this whole event and give you guys a breakdown of everything that happened, so let's get straight into it. And opening up the card, we had Carli Judice versus Nicolle Caliari. So Judice, I predicted to win by a decision win. I thought she'd just be better in sort of all areas of the fight, and I was actually correct about Carli Judice winning this one, except it was actually by round 3 TKO. So breaking it down, round 1, Caliari comes out fast in the round. She's sort of pushing forward, trying to land hard on Judice early, must be trying to sort of put her out. But she's getting caught with body kicks and knees and shots to the body. And as the round went on, Judice just started pushing forward more. She landed the biggest shots on Caliari and was doing a good job at avoiding all of Caliari's sort of takedown attempts in wrestling. Decently close round though. Caliari looked extremely good early, but outside of that, she was kind of getting tagged with heavier shots, and Judice most likely just took the round through her, dealing more damage. Second round, really good round for Judice, with her consistently landing these 1-2 combos straight to the face of Caliari. It caused some huge swelling on one of her eyes, I think it was her right eye. And outside of defending all the Caliari's takedowns, I thought this was just a clear Judice round through her sort of consistently landing to the head and body, doing some real damage to the body as well. That's what was kind of underrated in the earlier rounds. And then it all culminates in the third, insanely dominant round for Judice. She's sort of teeing off on Caliari's head, but also kneeing the body, getting into the clinch and dealing damage with ripping to the body with hooks. And halfway through the round, as Caliari dips down, Judice lands a brutal knee straight to the body that puts Caliari down, finishes her via body shot TKO, a clean finish win to start the card, and an actual pretty fun fight leading up to that as well. So good fight to start the card off. And next up is Brunno Ferreira versus Jackson McVey. So I said that Brunno Ferreira was going to take this one by around 1 KO. I just saw his striking being too much for a newly debuting McVey. And I was actually right about Brunno Ferreira winning this one, except it was actually by round 1 submission of all things. His ground game's probably going to be better than his actual striking at some point because, man, 2 back-to-back armbar finishes. Very impressive. But breaking it down, first round, very slow start to the fight with McVey sort of holding the center of the octagon. He's keeping a long guard to try and keep Ferreira at range. Ferreira would occasionally blitz in and land something over the top, but mainly it was McVey just holding the center, keeping him at bay. But near the end of the round, McVey sort of gets tangled up with Ferreira, tries to toss him over his hip in a sort of judo throw, ends up on bottom position after sort of a little scramble on the floor, and very quickly Ferreira sees an opening for an armbar, and he takes it very quickly, cranks it, rolls over, and starts like pulling it up towards him while he's sort of lying on his stomach. And finishes the fight via armbar very early. McVey taps almost instantly. A second armbar submission for Ferreira, both in the... Actually, I think his other one was in the second, but decently early finishes by submission from this very dangerous striker. I think big things are coming for Ferreira. I think he's starting to become a lot more well-rounded, and on the feet, he's no joke either. So, yeah, keep an eye on Ferreira in the future, and we'll move on to the next fight. Moving on from that, we have Ryan Spann versus Lukasz Brzeski. So, Ryan Spann, I said would win this one. I said by round 2 KO or TKO, because I just saw him being a bit better on the feet and having more of a finishing potential than Brzeski. But Ryan Spann did win this one. It was actually by a first round submission of all things, which I should have sort of predicted. He's very good with his ground game. It's just that we didn't see much of it against Costa, but in this one he looked absolutely dominant. Very early in the round, Spann just pushes forward, takes Brzeski down, almost immediately gets in an arm triangle choke, but loses it, staying on top position. He tries it again for the arm triangle, and when he does this, Brzeski sort of turns to his side, where he takes some big shots to the side of the head. Spann starts raining down ground and pound, to which Brzeski sort of tries to get back up again, get to the feet, and he's taking damage the whole time. And then when he actually does get to the feet, Spann catches him in a standing guillotine, locks it up really, really tight. He's really good at standing guillotines, and submits Brzeski. He sort of drops down, sinks deeper into it, and taps. Very good first round submission for Ryan Spann. I think he's somewhat back. We need to sort of see high level competition before we say he's going to be a real contender, but a really good win against a decent opponent. Yeah, not much else to say though. Next fight. Next up is Jimmy Crute versus Marcin Prachnio. So I went with Marcin Prachnio. It was more that I couldn't really trust Crute with his recent sort of fights. They've either been draws or really close decisions or losses. I was actually wrong here. Jimmy Crute took this one, and it was by a very dominant win. It was a first round submission win. Very, very impressive. So the fight opens up. Prachnio is staying on the back foot. He's kicking at Crute. Meanwhile, Crute's sort of marching forward and occasionally throwing big. But most of the time he wasn't really landing. He was missing and overthrowing. He'd often get caught as well after sort of throwing this big shot. But around halfway through the round, Crute managed to get Prachnio to the ground, and when he gets back to the feet, he sort of starts pulling him back down again, sort of constantly taking him down and getting him towards the corner of the cage. He almost gets him in a guillotine at one point, but when they return to the feet, Crute actually takes some big knees and meaty combos from Prachnio as they're sort of getting back up again, which was sort of a trade-off for the takedowns. And right as the round's about to end, it was a pretty even round. Crute gets Prachnio to the ground again and locks in an armbar. Somehow Prachnio actually holds out for a long time. He's constantly sort of rolling to get out of position or like lessen the torque on the arm, and even holds out while it's being fully locked in. His elbow's bending backwards. Real damage is sort of showing. Eventually ends up tapping after about 30 seconds. It went on for way too long. I feel like the ref should have stopped it a bit earlier, but either way, very dominant win for Jimmy Crute. This was sort of very impressive considering his last showings. And yeah, not much else to say about this one. Next fight. And closing out the early prelims was Adam Fugitt versus Islam Dulatov. So I pretty much hit this one bang on the head. I said that Islam Dulatov was going to get this one done by around 1 KO. And he did get this one done by around 1 KO. So good prediction there. So the fight opens up and Dulatov keeps targeting Fugitt heavy with the sort of right hands that are landing over the top, landing over and over again and having him sort of hurt and stumbling back in moments. Fugitt does actually hold out for a little bit, and he managed to get Dulatov up against the cage for a small part of the round, but when they separate, Dulatov just starts landing big knees in the clinch as they're sort of separating. And Fugitt's head just starts bouncing back with these knees. He's landing them straight down the middle directly to the head of Fugitt. Had him hurt decently, but Fugitt actually had a pretty good chin in this fight. And after checking a kick from Fugitt near the end of the round where Fugitt was sort of backing up, I think it actually hurt his foot. That's why he was sort of backing up. Dulatov catches Fugitt with a super fast counter left hook, sort of Ferreira style. It came out of nowhere, came right as Fugitt was sort of throwing back, and it landed clean on the chin, put Fugitt out. He dived in for some ground and pound. It looked like he woke him up again and then put him back to sleep because he was out from the hook, but then while he's ground and pounding him, it looked like he was trying to get back up. Either way, fight got called in the first round. Very, very impressive debut for Islam Dulatov. I thought the Contender Series win, while it was dominant, I didn't know how well it would translate to UFC skill level. But man, he made Fugitt look very easy, which not a lot of people can do. So excited to see what's next for Islam Dulatov, and we'll move on to the prelims. And starting off the prelims is Ateba Gautier versus Robert Valentin. So I said that Ateba Gautier would get this one done by around 1 KO, and Ateba Gautier did get this one done by around 1 KO or TKO, I guess, but same difference. This was an amazing performance and another first round finish. There was about 5 in a row on this card, and this one was absolute dominance. Valentin comes out constantly sort of faking these kicks to try and get Gautier to back up, but Gautier doesn't really flinch on them. He starts pushing forward, and the minute he gets Valentin up against the cage, he lands this big right hand over the top. Had Valentin rocked, Valentin was actually rocked for a while. He kept getting tagged over and over again. Right when he'd start to recover, that would sort of daze him again. Valentin was sort of giving him this taunt, like the come here sort of taunt, sort of what Costa does, like bring it on. But it made no sense because Gautier would just keep pounding on him and would keep dazing him and having him out. And Valentin was sort of stumbling around the octagon on shaky legs, doing this taunt like, come on, more, and then get tagged again and then be out again. And then after about 30 seconds of Valentin being out of the feet, sort of circling the octagon, he hits this big shot over the top that sort of puts him down, covers up. Gautier didn't really put him out. He just starts pounding away at him. Valentin just holds up a high guard, doesn't really try and escape position, and he would have likely gone out if they let the fight continue. And the ref jumps in, stops it. Very, very dominant win for Gautier. Valentin didn't really have a moment where he looked in control at all outside of the first maybe 10 seconds. And man, this Gautier, he looks like a mini Ngannou. He was punching through the guard of Valentin, which is really hard to do, punch straight through a guard, especially someone so fresh into a fight. Keep an eye on Ateba Gautier, man. He is a monster. Yeah. Next fight on the card. Next up is Francisco Prado versus Nicolle Varetnikov. So Francisco Prado I had for winning this fight by a decision win. This fight actually went to a really close split decision where, honestly, if they scored it for either way, I probably wouldn't have complained. It was a really hard fight to score because there were so many sort of areas that they had to consider. But ultimately, Nicolle Varetnikov took this one, very close split decision. So breaking it down, first round, Prado instantly gets Varetnikov on the ground with sort of a shot over the top combined with a trip by grabbing the leg, sort of what Piotr Jan usually does. with Prado switching between an arm triangle choke, then he rolls around, takes it back, goes for a rear naked choke, tries to move on to a head triangle choke after that. Varetnikov's is kind of constantly fighting these submission attempts while sort of being positioned into another one. So there were about 3, I'd say, or maybe 2 solid ones, one that wasn't really in. And when it looks like Prado's about to submit Varetnikov with an armbar, Varetnikov just stands up and slams Prado hard. He lands directly on his head, with the shot sort of taking a bit of focus out of him, or it didn't really daze him as much as it sort of just like threw him off guard a little bit. But either way, Varetnikov dives in, lands some really good shots as a result. And when it returns to the feet, it becomes very clear that Prado is hurting badly, mainly to the body, but also a bit like out on the feet. But a big knee to the body definitely demonstrates that Prado sort of wilting away a little bit. Varetnikov keeps targeting the body after that, with Prado sort of just defending for the rest of the round. And I'd say Varetnikov took that round just through damage, but very close if you consider the submission attempts. Second round opens up early on the feet. Varetnikov's landing big on Prado, even knocks him down with a left hand, but Prado, it wasn't really hurt by it. He gets back up pretty quickly. Midway through the round, when Varetnikov tries to throw a spin kick, Prado takes him down and holds top position for a large portion of the round. But back on the feet, Prado begins picking it up, landing some big shots on the head of Varetnikov and constantly chopping away at that front leg, having Varetnikov visibly hurt and exhausted. After this round, he never really had a moment. But this was a very, very close round. Third round, Prado attempts takedowns early and ends up actually getting reversed and put on bottom. But Varetnikov lets him up to the feet, which was sort of a mistake because Prado gets up and starts beating up on him badly. He had his front leg on its sort of last stand. He ate a pretty brutal elbow and then a 5-piece combo to the head. And when Prado managed to get Varetnikov to the ground again, he lands another ground and pound that almost ended the fight. And from there, Prado took the round dominantly, with Varetnikov sort of selling the round, throwing in some spin kicks, which didn't work before, and predictably got him taken down this round as well. And even jumping a guillotine, that ended up just putting him on bottom position. And when the decision came, it ultimately was dependent on the second round, maybe even the first, with it coming down to a split decision that Varetnikov just ended up taking, but insanely close fight. Honestly, you could have scored it either way and I wouldn't have complained, but yeah. Next fight. And next up was a very heated fight between Marvin Vettori and Brendan Allen. So I said that Marvin Vettori would take this one by a decision win. I just thought he'd be doing a bit more on the feet and they'd be too stubborn to sort of be finished. It did go to a decision, but Brendan Allen took this one. I thought this one was actually a lot closer than the judges' sort of scorecards would lead you to believe. But we'll get into it. So round one opens up, battle of sort of trading shots to open the fight. They're each landing a single shot or maybe like a 2-piece combo, sort of like a sparring session if anything. But they are landing hard. Vettori ends up landing clean on Allen early, but Allen ends up taking Vettori down shortly after. He busts open the face of Vettori with some ground and pound and almost catches him in a rear naked choke. And in classic Brendan Allen fashion, he somehow gives up top control. He tries to go for a rear naked choke, ends up falling over the top of Vettori, putting himself on bottom. Vettori ends up landing some big shots on Allen here, with sort of Allen just eating them. And almost submitted Allen as well with a rear naked choke of his own. And back on the feet for the rest of the round, Vettori is constantly landing on Allen while Allen is overthrowing his shots, getting clipped. But despite Vettori landing more and even out grappling Allen at moments of the fight, the round probably still goes to Allen, just through him dealing the most physical damage, busting open Vettori and cutting him open, but it was pretty close in my opinion. Round two opens up back to the sort of single shot exchanges, with both not really landing that big on each other but still having the occasional moment. Allen's constantly pressuring forward and having Vettori sort of dazed at multiple points in this round, but was also getting caught with more shots and was missing most of what he'd throw. Another really close round where I think Vettori was sort of constantly landing the better shots around, with the damage on his face from the first making it look a lot closer than it was, and the cut sort of reopening every time Allen would land big on him. But I don't know, very, very close round in my opinion. Third round opens up, another really close round with each having their own moments in the striking and landing big here and there, but neither looked particularly better than the other. And despite Allen getting a takedown near the end of the round, he didn't really do much with it. And this was another ridiculously close round with Allen having a solid moment near the end, but Vettori was just constantly pressuring throughout the whole fight, so it really came down to what you valued more. It goes to the decision. Brendan Allen takes it with a two 30-27 cards, which I thought was interesting. I thought it was closer to a 29-28. Like, to say that Vettori didn't win a single round here, I think yeah. But it was a complete brawl. Both fighters were sort of scrapping it out on the feet. You could tell that there was a bit of animosity because they were sort of both just trying to hurt each other on the feet. It wasn't the smartest of fights, but it was still pretty entertaining. So yeah. Next fight. And closing out the prelims was Phillips versus Vinicius Oliveira. So I said that Vinicius Oliveira was going to take this one by decision win, and I got this one dead on. Vinicius Oliveira took this one by decision. It was close at moments, and the first round was a bit concerning, but he still took it nonetheless. So round one opens up, and Phillips is sort of coming in with this karate, sort of jumping back and forth approach. And very early on, he lands a straight right that stumbles Oliveira bad, has him backing up on the back foot while Phillips is sort of chasing him down, trying to finish him. And consistently throughout the round, Oliveira just keeps getting tagged with these big shots, stumbling around the octagon, defending mainly for the whole round. As the round goes on, Oliveira starts walking forward. He starts chopping the lead leg of Phillips and forces Phillips to slow down a little bit, starts kicking to the body as well. And at the end of the round, Oliveira starts to come back a little bit. He lands a nice flurry of punches against a cage at the end of the round, but it wasn't really enough to overcome what Phillips did that round. So I'd say that one was a pretty clear Phillips round. Round two opens up very early in the round. Oliveira drops Phillips with a nasty left hook combo, sort of a left-right hook that ended with the left hook that put him down. And he doesn't really give him a chance to recover. He tries to get back up again, but Oliveira jumps in, starts landing hammer fists as he's getting back up. As Phillips tries to sort of circle out around the cage, he starts throwing head kicks as well to cut him off. Unfortunately, Phillips does actually manage to get the fight to the ground, where he sits on bottom and sort of recovers. But even though he was on bottom, Oliveira would stand up from top position and land some really nasty shots straight down the middle. Mainly his straights that were busting open the face and nose of Phillips. And back on the feet, Oliveira has Phillips' number. He's sort of taking the lead leg out from under him with calf kicks, landing big shots to the body, ducking and moving around out of anything Phillips would throw back. He definitely took this round, especially with that latter half. And in the third round, it's clear that Phillips left everything in the first round. Oliveira is sort of deconstructing Phillips on all levels. He's chopping to the legs, kicking to the body. Phillips isn't even bouncing that much anymore. He'd occasionally do it, but mainly he's just sort of backing up. And in the end, Phillips couldn't really deal with Oliveira's marching forward pace, and he was just sort of throwing shots from out of nowhere. Oliveira fights with his hands by his hips, and he sort of just throws like crazy, sort of in a similar style to Yuri, where you don't really see them coming because they're so unorthodox. And Phillips was just constantly backing up, just trying not to get finished, trying to make it to a decision, while Oliveira was catching him with these really weird shots. And when the decision is read, Oliveira takes a very obvious 29-28 decision win. The later two rounds were definitely his. And a pretty good performance from both fighters. Phillips, not so much. He kind of gassed out early. Didn't really have anything for Oliveira in those later two, but Oliveira looked really good as the fight went on. And I do think he is top 15 worthy when it comes to bantamweight. And now we move on to the main card, and opening the main card was Michael Johnson versus Daniel Zellhuber. So I said that Daniel Zellhuber would take this one by a decision win. I actually thought he'd take this one quite dominantly, and I was wrong. Michael Johnson came through, took this one by a decision win. Very impressive win for him. He actually looked really good this fight. Zellhuber, not so much. But we'll get straight into it. First round's mainly just a battle for who can land the bigger kicks. Zellhuber's landing big to the body. He's whipping them up to the head occasionally, while Johnson's sort of just staying on the outside, targeting that lead leg. In the second half of the round, they sort of start to let their hands fly a little bit more. Johnson sort of starts first, winning the round primarily through just landing more with his striking. With Zellhuber just staying at distance and kicking. Granted, kicking to the arms and body of Johnson, slowly wearing them down, but wasn't really doing any much damage. And outside of Johnson's pants ripping pretty much within the first 30 seconds and Zellhuber getting kicked in the cup and sort of walking it off pretty quickly, not much else happened this round, but definitely a Johnson round. Round two opens up, and Johnson's throwing heavy with everything he throws. He's sort of finding his target and sort of throwing with all his might, but Zellhuber is kind of keeping a distance, making it really hard for him to directly impact with Zellhuber. Out of nowhere, Johnson lands this left hook though that drops Zellhuber badly. Johnson dives in, tries to find a finish. Zellhuber looked like he was going to be finished, but he somehow recovers on bottom position before he quickly makes his way back up to the feet. And it seems like Zellhuber has accepted the firefight with his hands and gets a lot more sort of active with his striking, catching Johnson with some really nice counter shots while also chopping away at his legs with the kicks. He sort of mixed it in with his kicks. But despite this, Johnson won this round through being better in the striking early and dropping Zellhuber. But Zellhuber did have his moments near the end. And in the third round, Zellhuber starts landing very heavily to the body with these kicks. Starts pushing Johnson back with these front kicks and teep kicks when he tries to engage with him, trying to just keep as much distance as possible. And while this was a significantly worse round for Johnson, he's not really blitzing in as much and landing big. With the damage to his body throughout the rounds is sort of starting to amount, with Johnson slowing down significantly and not throwing as much this round. Zellhuber is really only relying on his kicks. Granted, he's still sending the kicks to the body and to the head and to the guard, and they're still slowly wearing him down. But at this point, Zellhuber needs a finish. He couldn't really get it. He looked significantly better in this third round, but it wasn't enough to make up for the first two, with Johnson taking a 29-28 decision. Man, Johnson looks really good here. I thought he'd be a bit sort of, with his older age, struggle with this one, but he actually picked it up throughout the fight. Zellhuber didn't look amazing. He was kind of scared to get into the firefight with him, especially with his striking. Didn't really seem like he wanted to switch up much, which was a shame, but yeah, decently entertaining fight. I mean, compared to the others, it wasn't anything amazing, but it's an alright fight to start the main card. Next fight. Next up on the card was Dan Ige versus Patricio Pitbull. So I said that Dan Ige was going to take this one by a decision win. I just thought he had more experience, and I wasn't really heavy into Pitbull as a fighter after his debut at UFC 314. But I was wrong. Patricio Pitbull took this one by a decision win. It was a pretty clear decision win, but not a great performance from either fighter. So the first round opens up, and it's a really slow start to the fight. Each fighter sort of trying to feel the other one out. Pitbull's chopping at the lead leg of Ige. That was only really the main shot thrown throughout this round. And around halfway through the round, Pitbull takes Ige down, keeps bringing him back down to the ground whenever he'd try and stand up. But with a minute left, it returns to the feet, and for the rest of the round, nothing of impact really happens. Pitbull taking down Ige was the main scoring point for this round, and he mainly won that round just through wrestling. So the second round opens up, and Ige starts letting the hands go a little bit more. He's sort of closing distance, landing this 2 to 3 piece combo, and then jumping back out of distance. And while it's initially working, after not throwing anything for the whole first half of the round, Pitbull lands a straight right that drops Ige to a knee. It lands pretty square on. And then he just follows up with a barrage of punches, having Ige circling around the cage hurt, holding up a high guard, while Pitbull sort of punches with left-right combo, hook combos, or a straight, and then a body shot, and then another sort of right. While Ige just sort of cowers up, holds up a high guard. Ige does recover near the end, but he ends up getting put on bottom position, losing the first 2 rounds very clearly. And then going into the third, he needs a finish, and he almost gets one instantly. He lands a very big head kick on Pitbull as he dives in for a takedown. It actually landed further up the leg, so it was closer to like a knee than anything. But either way, busts open the nose of Pitbull, has him on the ground, open for some ground and pound. But somehow Pitbull recovers. He starts shooting for takedowns himself, but Ige's doing a good job at first, sort of keeping the fight standing, blitzing in and letting his hands go. And while he did pick up the sort of striking volume in the third, he got caught in grappling exchanges a bit too much, even getting taken down near the end where he could have potentially sort of fought out for a finish. And when the decision got read out, Patricio Pitbull took a 29-28 decision. I mean, it was a clear win for Pitbull, but neither fighter looked that amazing. That first round was complete nothing. No one really threw anything. Pitbull looked the same he did in 314. It's just that Dan Ige wasn't really pressuring forward as much as Yair was. And even Ige, he wasn't really doing much. He was sort of waiting for Pitbull to sort of mess up so he could counter. But outside of that, was not throwing anything. So probably the worst fight on the card. Neither fighter really had any impactful moments. So yeah, next fight. And following that was Kevin Holland versus Daniel Rodriguez. So I said that Kevin Holland would take this one by a decision win. I just saw his experience being a bit too much for Rodriguez, who hasn't really fought a top 15 welterweight guy. Or someone of that skill level, and it's gone to some pretty dodgy decisions with some pretty average opponents. I was actually wrong. Daniel Rodriguez took this one by a decision win. It was a pretty clear decision as well at that, and he looked really good this fight. Kevin Holland didn't look amazing, but we'll get into that. But Rodriguez this is probably the best win of his career so far. So round 1 opens up, and it's a really strong start to the round for Rodriguez. He pushes forward instantly and gets Holland on the back foot, lands some big shots early on that sort of bounce Kevin Holland back against the cage and have him holding up a guard. And while Holland does use his kicks to sort of keep Rodriguez at bay for a lot of this round, landing the better shots when the fight would stay at distance, Rodriguez would blitz in occasionally and land these big shots to Holland when he would enter the exchange. And while there wasn't anything fight-defining thrown this round, there weren't any moments where it looks like either fighter was going to be finished. Rodriguez most likely just took the round through consistently landing the better shots of the round, with Holland not really firing back at all. So very clear Rodriguez round. Round 2, out of nowhere early in the round, Rodriguez lands a right hook that sort of sits Kevin Holland down, has him dazed, falling backwards. Holland ends up on bottom position before Rodriguez stands up and tries to get the fight back onto the feet. And back on the feet, Holland almost instantly just starts trying to shoot him for takedowns. Keeps failing them. Rodriguez keeps landing these big shots over the top of the head of Holland, sort of punching over the guard, with Holland being dropped again later this round. He's actually really hurt the second time he gets dropped, and Daniel Rodriguez tries to finish him with ground and pound, but Holland manages to recover on bottom position. Rodriguez actually seems to tire himself out as well near the end of this round, trying to chase finishes constantly. And Holland manages to get him down in the final moments of the round. Tries to lock in a dash choke, wasn't really in that tight. And then when it returns to the feet, Rodriguez is just back to landing the bigger shots. Pretty clear Rodriguez round, very dominant first half, and then in the second half was pretty even, but Rodriguez definitely took that second one. In the third, Holland sort of turns it around. Very early on, he gets Rodriguez in a clinch, and then it drops him with this brutal uppercut that didn't even look like it landed that hard, but it just landed perfectly on the chin. And on the ground, he almost has Rodriguez out. He gets him up against the cage, he tries to dash choke him, doesn't work again. And while it seems like Rodriguez has sort of braved the storm, they separate for a bit. Holland hits him with a constant barrage of punches up against the cage that has Rodriguez stumbling around on shaky legs for a good portion of the round. One shot away from being finished a lot of the time. And around halfway through the round, Holland lands this uppercut in the clinch that folds Rodriguez over. Fumbles another finish though with this jumping knee. I don't know why he threw it. He could have easily thrown any other punch and dropped Rodriguez, but he tries to throw this flying knee, which just barely touches the chin of Rodriguez. And when it seems like Rodriguez has finally survived, he almost gets put into a rear naked choke at the end of the round. Almost got put into another armbar as well, but manages to hold on to top position, keeps transitioning out of the submission attempts, and then the bell goes off. Rodriguez takes a dominant 29-28 decision. I mean, it was pretty clear that he won this one. Holland just didn't look great. He just kept sort of shying away from a battle on the feet. And then whenever he'd get tagged, it seemed like he could never really recover. Rodriguez, on the other hand, actually had a very, very good performance here. I've never seen anything in his career that came close to how dominant he looked here in the first 2 rounds, and it was a very impressive win for him, and I think he'll probably get a top 15 spot, if not be circling on the peripherals of the top 15 spot. But yeah, this one was a decently fun fight. There were moments that were a bit enraging from Holland, but yeah. Next fight on the card. And now we move on to the co-main event, Paulo Costa versus Roman Kopylov. So I predicted that Paulo Costa would take this one by decision win, and I more specifically thought that he was going to sort of return to what made him good in the first place. Constantly pushing forward, constantly punishing, trying to land big, trying to do some real damage, not staying on the back foot. And I pretty much got this one bang on. Paulo Costa had a very vintage performance here. He won this one by a decision win. Very, very impressive performance. So in the first round, early on, we can see signs of vintage Costa. He's pushing forward, throwing these big shots in the exchanges, standing his ground in the center of the octagon, with Kopylov really struggling with forward pressure. We saw this in a few of his fights, but Costa was really bringing the fight to him here, and he wasn't able to get off his kicks or his punches that he usually can. And surprisingly, it was actually Costa who was doing the most amount of damage with the kicks. He was doing big damage to the lead leg of Kopylov early throughout the round, sort of kicking out from under him. And he was also whipping these kicks up to the body of Kopylov that near the end of the fight you could really tell were taking their toll. And with a minute left in the first round, Costa drops Kopylov with a straight right, punches the mouthguard straight out of his face, and then he lands a series of huge hammer fists to the side of Kopilov's head that I thought were going to have him out. Didn't quite do it. Kopylov recovers. The round ends. Very clear Costa round. Second round, Kopylov is getting hurt with big kicks to the body and legs from Costa again, with Kopylov sort of biting on everything Costa does. He's throwing punches, Kopilov's flinching away from them. He's not throwing punches, Kopilov's flinching away. Midway through the round, Costa actually lands a straight right that dazed Kopylov back against the fence. And then again later in the round, did sort of the same straight right that had him dazed again and backing up. Using these openings to sort of continue to punish the body with kicks. And while Kopylov does land here and there this round on Costa, and they are pretty big shots that he is landing, Costa's is constantly pushing forward and dealing the most amount of damage this round, so he definitely probably takes this round as well. Round 3 opens up and Kopylov has a moment early where he sort of pushes forward looking for a finish. Costa's sort of slowing down a bit and being pushed up against the cage, focusing more on defense. But it's very short lasting, and very soon Costa goes back to what was succeeding in the last 2 rounds. Near the end of the round, Kopylov starts landing some big punches to the head of Costa that stumble him slightly. It's not enough to make up for the constant pressure of Costa throughout these fights and the big shots he's landing to the body and legs. And overall, Kopilov's just tired from the constant punishment he received in the first and second with those body kicks. So Costa takes a very clear 30-27 decision for this one when the decision gets read out. And Costa looked like he did all the way back in sort of 2023, 2022. Not shying away from a gunfight on the feet, constantly pushing forward, being this threat that you can not really finish because he has a pretty good chin. And he'll just keep marching you down. And that's exactly what happened this fight. So I'm excited to see what happens next for Costa. Also excited to see what's next for Kopylov. But yeah, I want to see if Costa can make another run at middleweight. But we'll have to see. And now we arrive at the main event for the BMF title. Max Holloway versus Dustin Poirier 3, the trilogy. I said that Max Holloway was going to win this one by decision win. And I got it correct. It was a pretty dominant performance. I thought it was going to be a bit closer. But it pretty much happened how I had imagined it. Max Holloway looked a lot busier this fight, while Poirier was landing big at moments. Max was just constantly pestering him with different shots, targeting different parts of the body. He was using his kicks a lot more than I thought he would. But yeah, first round, Holloway uses his kicks early. He's sort of pummeling to the body, stomping at the quad of Poirier with teep kicks and oblique kicks and spin kicks. While Poirier's just sort of feeling out that first round, not really throwing much. Midway through the round, Holloway knocks Poirier down. He lands some good shots as he's getting back up, but doesn't really have him hurt. Poirier recovers from that, and with some more spinning back kicks to the body, Holloway takes this round pretty clearly, with Poirier not really throwing much, mainly just surviving for the duration of the round and trying to feel out Max. In the second round, Holloway's getting a lot more comfortable with his striking. He's blitzing in, landing combinations before sort of ending the exchange by jumping out of the pocket. Poirier's also picking it up as the round goes on, nicely landing in the close distance exchanges, landing bigger shots of the round. And halfway through the round, Holloway hits Poirier hard enough to put him on shaky legs up against the cage, where he starts firing wildly, dropping Poirier before getting full mount and raining shots from top, where I thought he was going to finish Poirier, but somehow Poirier rolls over, survives, and when it returns to the feet, he starts tagging Holloway with some big shots, and then actually manages to drop him himself, and almost has him out in the end. When he drops him, he dives in for a jumping guillotine, because of course he does. But he doesn't get it, and the bell goes off for the round with Holloway sort of just barely surviving. He was sort of out on wobbly legs when he went back to the stool. And while they both had their moments and dropped each other, I think that Poirier may have taken this one, because it seemed like he did have Max a bit more dazed and out of it, although Holloway did some big damage with his knockdown as well, so very, very close round. Third round opens up. Holloway has restrained his striking a little bit from the last couple rounds. He's back to sort of targeting the legs and body of Poirier with kicks like he did in the first, with Poirier swinging big, trying to land big on Holloway and sort of knock him down again. And as the round goes on, Holloway is letting his hands go a lot more, blitzing to land in these bigger and bigger combos, the 3-4-5 piece as the fight goes on combos. While Poirier's just sort of sticking to his jab and hook combos, not really mixing it up as much. And while this was a really close round, I think I'd have to give it to Holloway just through the constant volume and pressure, opposed to sort of Poirier landing big, but only occasionally. So that's probably another max round for me. Round 4, Poirier's struggling to find distance of Holloway this round. He's sort of moving in and out with his combos, sort of ducking in, landing, and then moving back out again. Midway through the round, they get scrappy and start trading in the exchange, where Holloway does start to come out better, but also gets tagged with some big shots as well. Once again, Holloway round for me personally. I think the volume outweighed anything Poirier landed on him, but Poirier was landing very hard and was doing some real damage to the face of Holloway. So not saying it was definitively Holloway's round, it was very, very close, but I'd score it towards Holloway. Round 5 opens up and Poirier starts landing his like hardest shots. He starts letting his hands go a lot more this round, working to the body, working to the head of Holloway, and landing the more impactful shots of the round that were sort of overweighing Max's constant pressure. And while Poirier was winning most of this round, in the final minute, Holloway starts landing these big shots to the head of Poirier, but also taking big shots in return, keeping it competitive. And we all know what happens within the last 10 seconds. Holloway points down at the ground and just starts swinging like crazy. And to be honest, Poirier kind of backed down. He wasn't really throwing back, and he realized he wasn't going to win the exchange, so he clinched up. Didn't let Max sort of do any more damage to him. He already took quite a bit in those final 10 seconds. Bell goes off. Holloway takes a 49-46 decision. One judge gave him 48-47, I think. And he defends the BMF title, giving a perfect post-fight speech, by the way, where he doesn't use up too much time. He acknowledges what's next for him and then moves on to Dustin's retirement, hyping up Dustin Poirier as well, which was a sort of good guy move from him, acknowledging that he had to play the bad guy as well, which I really thought was a cool thing. And speaking of Dustin Poirier's retirement, I wouldn't be lying if I didn't say it wasn't bittersweet. Seeing such an iconic hero in the sport have his last dance, but also going out on a complete war, potential fight of the night, and even maybe a fight of a year. I mean, this was a very scrappy brawl between the two of them. And man, it was such a fitting end to such a legend in the sport. He will be missed. But yeah, this was a pretty good fight to go out on for Poirier. So that's it, guys. That was UFC 318 and a recap of everything that happened on this card. How did we do this week? Alright. I got my predictions on who would win correct by 57%. I did get the method of those wins by 63%, which is pretty impressive. That's a bit higher than usual. Cam did a lot worse this week. He only got 50% of his win predictions correct, which is pretty much like flipping a coin. So another win for Pat Scap there. Where would I rank this card? This card was overall pretty solid. There were a few lowlights. Patricio Pitbull versus Dan Ige stands out. Even Vettori versus Brendan Allen had moments where it didn't really seem like it delivered to what the hype was leading up to, but that could have just been an expectation thing. So while it was overall solid, there were some moments that I didn't particularly find that interesting. So I'm going to put it in A tier, but near the bottom. I'm going to chuck it just underneath UFC 316. I think it's one of the worst pay-per-views of this year, but that's not really saying much with the quality of the pay-per-views we've had. And yeah, this card surprised me. Honestly, a lot of people were sort of mocking it for how bad the card was, how much name value it lacked. And I do agree to an extent, but the performances this card were undeniably fun. 4 back-to-back first-round finishes, all of which were very fun to watch. And even the decisions, most of them were pretty entertaining. And the main event overall was probably one of the best main events we've had, all things considered. It was a complete war between two people. Kind of reminded me of UFC 314, where it was a pretty close decision where both were sort of putting all on the table and fighting for the belt. Very refreshing to see. Next week, UFC Fight Night, Whitaker versus Derrida. I'll see you guys then. Yeah, bye-bye.